And the man is in the building. Ladies and gentlemen, will you make some noise for Mr. Esad Ribic? We do have a microphone. Do we need it? Can you hear? I mean, I can enunciate to the back row with the best of them. What's your speaking volume like? Can you pronounce? Testing. There we go. Fair enough.
Everybody hears?
Yes. Well, I think we've got one or two that kind of maybe coming back to see you. Welcome along. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Plenty to talk about, or at least we'll try and get in as much as we can. And of course, questions from you guys as well. Always there. I'll get that sorted. But it's great to have you back out at France.
Thank you.
It's great to have you back in the UK. Because the first time I met you was at the Thought Bubble. So you were doing a commission. Yeah, you were doing a commission. I came up to get a book signed. And I think you pretty much barked at me to go away because you were well into the zone. You were absolutely, yeah, you were well into the painting. That's so great. No, because I want to talk about that as well, about your process. But it's great to have you back because we had a question while we were waiting. Coming back to the UK and going back out to cons again, and especially after that extended 2 years. What's it like to get back out and see people again?
Here's the thing though, I'm probably one of the few people who didn't stop going to shows. Because during all these 2 years of COVID, there was a show in Montenegro that's probably the only one that didn't get cancelled, you know. And since they couldn't really get all the guests that they wanted because of COVID, they had it every 6 months. They had extra money, you know.
Wow.
So our local people, you know, comic people, we were just going there every 6 months, you know, during the whole situation, you know. So actually I did shows during COVID, but I couldn't wait to start, you know, going abroad and stuff like that. I got used to that stuff.
So hopefully this is going to be the first of a bunch of visits back to the UK. We'll see you at UK.
I would say so.
There you go then. So there's your answer to that question a little bit earlier. So when it comes to interacting with fans, I really like asking the question about, because you're obviously incredibly well known for a number of titles such as Thor, Goddard, Secret Wars, and Eternals, which you own. Is there any of those books, because you've got quite a very back catalogue, going all the way back to Loki, going back to sort of 94, I believe, was when, something like that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Is there any of that work that kind of comes up with fans that sometimes surprises you? Like, where the hell did that come from?
It's kind of funny because it kind of varies, you know. Like, if I go to Spain, for example, for a show, people still, the biggest book in Spain of mine is still Loki. The one I did like, what, 20 years ago.
Sure.
You know? I believe they showed me like 19th edition of it or something. For whatever reason, that's the one that kind of resonated with them. And even though I did some other stuff that were more popular, in Spain this is still number one thing, you know. In Italy it's entirely different stuff. In Britain it's something totally different again. So it's kind of funny. There's just this you know, certain people in certain territory can remember you for something you did that they really liked, and no matter what you did later, you know, most of the interest still comes from this old stuff from
the past. So I mean, when you're doing stuff like Eternals, then and you've got this new audience with readers, or certainly for the new books. Do you find it's people that know you from previous work, or are you getting a lot of fresh new fans coming to you and discovering?
Well, here's the thing. For a whole of my career, and I've been working in Marvel for like 22 years now, and plus DCs and, you know, the smaller companies before that, there was every show. There was always somebody. Oh, I never heard of you. What did you do? You know. So it's just like when you start, you can expect that. But then after 25 plus years, you don't, but it still happens like that. So it's just like, you know, because a lot of comics audience are very secluded in their interests. You know, there are people who only read X-Men for example.
Sure.
And if you do an X-Men book, for them, you're a new artist. You know, even though you did I don't know what before, you know, for them it's like, oh, I like this guy, or I don't, whatever it can be. So since a lot of these audiences like that, like doing internals, you know, I was in New York in April, you know, and there were a couple of people. Oh, I never saw your stuff until I saw internals because they're big Kirby fans and whatever.
And that was their gateway coming in.
Yeah, of his stuff gets reworked in a new way, you know, they're interested in that, and no, they don't really read anything else that I might have done before.
Well, let's talk about the history then. Let's go a little bit further back, because if you do any, like I have done a bit of research into you, obviously there's the background of you going to college or university for graphic design, your animation background as well.
Yeah.
When it comes to comics, I mean, was that something that you were steering towards as a career from the start, or was it something that came later on? Were you looking more as a traditional illustrating career?
Not really. At the start, I saw myself as animator and illustrator. So, first commercial works I started doing. You know, first time I got paid for whatever I do, you know, unless it was ice cream. Mother, you know, was you know, doing in between in this animation studio. Then I upgraded to, you know, doing full animation, and then I upgraded doing the backgrounds and all this other stuff. Plus, I started doing like commercial illustrations, you know, and at that point, comics were really my hobby, you know. I was doing a lot of them, but it was just all like a couple of pages, you know, like goofy underground stuff.
I was going to ask you about your influences, but we'll get back to that.
Yeah, you know, so back then I was like a huge fan of Drew Friedman, if you know that.
Oh, well.
Yeah,
Okay.
for example. And that was the kind of stuff I was really into. I mean, I grew up on entirely different, you know, mostly European and British 2000 AD stuff, but most of what I grew up on was French, Mobius, German, that kind of stuff.
Thank God, the first time the word Mobius has been said over this panel, this bloody convention. We've been talking about influences and stuff, and Mobius hasn't come up once. Thank God we've actually.
Yeah. So, you know, like my first influence was probably Frank Frazetta, because when I was 8, they started publishing the Marvel magazine back home, and they would do like a couple of issues black and white inside, you know, and that's where I saw Silver Surfer by John Buscema for the first time, and the cover was Frazetta. So those were my two favorite things from US, you know. Literally, I became such a fan that I started copying Frazetta, you know, obsessively, you know, at some point. And I only read the Marvel comics if it was done by Buscema, you know?
Right.
So he would do like, I don't know, Conan, you know. Next issue was Barry Windsor Smith. I wasn't interested.
I'm just going to say, the artists that you're mentioning, and you can definitely see the touchstones into your work moving forward. That's that painting style, but also artists that really they're not disposable artists. These are people that really spend time, a lot of real sort of like detail and work on their work and their stylings, and also that kind of really sense of character forward rather than the backgrounds and stuff. While the backgrounds are important, I find that interesting that that's the touch on you going forward. In terms then of the actual rendering of your work, is it more a case of the work comes first rather than the deadline? As in, do you concentrate on making sure the quality is absolutely the focus and getting the rendering right, rather than getting the deadline of getting the book done?
Here's the thing. Occasionally, I will forget the deadlines. Occasionally, I will forget the quality. Depends on the situation. You know, if somebody starts crying to me, "We really need it tonight," so It just depends on the situation. A lot of the times, a lot of those things need to be done for back home. We say yesterday.
Sure.
We need it yesterday. So it's just like there is really no time for you to put on your A game.
Yeah.
Sometimes there is, and you can do better stuff. Sometimes there isn't. So the way I see it, like you're as good as your shittiest stuff that you can produce.
Okay. So, I mean, the book that I really kind of associate you with myself personally as a reader is Secret War, because I went in on that series art.
Okay.
And the rendering on that book is just phenomenal. How much lead time, though, if we take that project as a project,
yeah.
What was the kind of lead time and how much sort of like work did you establish to get that book in place? Because I know that it did, I think it ran a little, did it run a little late?
Yeah, it did. Here's the thing though. I've done the whole book in 7 months. And it's approximately 28 or 29 pages.
It was an oversize,
because there were a couple of huge oversized issues, and there was only one issue that was like regular size.
Yeah.
Everything was oversized. The thing is, though, they quite late, when I was already doing like issue 3, they decided to extend issue 8 into 8 and 9. So they added stuff to it. So in the end, I was late only 2 weeks for original deadline, which was 8 issues in 7 months. So I really wasn't late.
No.
Here's the thing.
I didn't want to imply.
Here's what they did. Like since the book was selling huge numbers, somebody in Marvel office decided to postpone it for a third quarter to make sure to get a bonus. So I show up in New York, for a show, and I've done the book like a month and a half ago, and suddenly, everybody's angry because you are doing commissions here instead of finishing the book. I'm like, what?
Book was done.
Yeah, So I was like, well, it's not up to me, people. Even my colorists, and whenever I would work with colorists, I would go for the pages and stuff like that. So I know when he finished.
Marvel was editorials in a very strange place.
Yeah. So I'm like, even the colorist finished like a week after me. So everything is done for like more than a month now.
Yeah.
So what's your problem, people?
Absolutely.
The book is not out yet. Talk tomorrow,
Okay.
So yeah, I was late.
Okay. My next question then comes in 2 parts, and I'll kind of come back to it. There's one question I really like to ask creatives, is especially artists like yourself, where you really kind of pour heart and soul into it. When you have that deadline and you let the page go, and you send it out and you submit it, how precious are you about your pages? Say, for example, they do reprints, or where they are coming back to like the trades. How much are you to kind of go back to the pages and go, oh, you know what, I could just do a little bit more, I could just tweak that, or I could just add to it? Or are you someone who just goes, it's out in the world?
With me, it's like, you take a shit and you flush. If I there's a missed opportunity there because I didn't have time, next time I'll do better. That's it.
Oh, right, so you really do, it's self-growth and really moving forward.
Yeah.
That's fair enough, that's cool.
So it's literally just that. There's no point crying over spilled milk, and stuff like that. And the way I see it, it's like whatever I can do in certain circumstances, is the best I can do. When I get the better circumstances, I will try to do the same thing better. A lot of the time, I get the chance to do it, and I think I manage to do it sometimes. So it's just again down to average.
And the other 2 questions, Ollie, I ask these a lot, so you can just deal with this. Number one, your working situation, because I know some artists will just work when the mood hits them and when they're ready to go. Or are you a 9 to 5 this is a working space. So then you have a real work-life situation, and you can just kind of like separate, and you can then relax a little bit more, and you have okay, 5 o'clock, okay, I'll come back to that. Or do you literally just burn the
midnight? I'm not 9 to 5, but I'm not either. Here's the thing. At some point I discovered that if I work for like 10 hours, let's say there's like a long deadline, and you elongate your working day, like your efficiency kind of starts dropping after a couple of hours, And once I started basically doing like, today I don't work more than 2 hours.
Alright.
So it's 2 hours, I'm off to do something else. Either I go to dig a ditch in my garden, or I play my drums, or I have a lunch, or I cook a lunch, or whatever, come back for another 2 hours, and then half an hour again. So I never really work more than 2 hours. And that way I discovered that I'm kind of...
And you've got focus as well.
I'm fresh more,
Sure.
So I don't have this situation where I'm just getting slower and slower, and by the hour 10 I'm just, it's a waste of time. So I find that this way I can actually do the same amount or more in less time.
And the last thing to follow up for that one is soundtrack. What do you listen to, or do you just have total silence so you can focus on the work, or do you have a podcast on, or do you...
All that shit.
Just turn it up.
All that shit, like really depends. Sometimes it's music, sometimes it's podcasts, as you say. Sometimes.
What's the music? What's the Esad Ribic playlist?
Well, it's kind of varied. I kind of grew up on heavy metal, and then I kind of branched into jazz rock, progressive rock, hopefully this stuff. I like orchestral music. I like 20th century, especially orchestral music.
So in that case,
all kinds of stuff.
So in that case, what was the soundtrack for? Because if there's one book that I think you're very much known for, which has that real rich kind of texture to it, Thor with Jason is just a phenomenal piece of work.
Okay, I can tell you what I think would be a good soundtrack for that book. I don't really think that I listened to it that much while I was doing it, but I think it goes well with imagery. And that would be Rainbow,
okay,
Stargazer.
Right.
So I recommend people go and listen to that.
Okay.
Because a lot of people were like, oh, it's very metal. I'm like, okay, yeah, what does it mean to you? Oh, well, I don't know, Swedish death metal. No, that's not what it is. It's older. That's all in my opinion, and I think that's
there's a real age to that. There's a real sense of epic, because you can get some epic stories. For example, like Secret Wars, where it is a big world building.
Yeah, it's
absolutely. But with Thor, it's this sense of real history. There's a real sense of depth to it, which
Rainbow, Stargazer.
Absolutely. When did those conversations come from? When it came to talking to yourself and Jason, was it something that you two really wanted to bring to that book, or was it something that Jason said, no, I want to have this real sense of an epic story which has got some real consequence and real drive from the past?
So I met him before because we did some work together before, and I went on to do something else. I've done Ultimates.
Yes.
For a while, and we ended up, having drinks, a couple of nights in New York and stuff like that, and just chit-chatting. He did feel inspired, I said, I really want to work with you, I think I got something for you. I didn't know what that was about. He said, sure, yeah. We've done something already together. I thought we kind of clicked well. Even though, mind you, Jason does a lot of different stuff And I would say that most of the stuff that he does, I'm not the right artist for.
Okay.
You know? But there's this sub-segment of what he does that I think I'm a right artist for. And Thor was one of those things, you know.
What were the words that were coming up in conversation for putting that book together then? What was the touchstones? What was the...
No, here's the thing. He pitched it at some, you know, writer retreat and stuff like that to editors and other writers. And he didn't talk to me about it at all. He just, well, I would really like for Esad to draw it, you know. And that kind of pretty much sealed the deal, you know. Because then I got...
So it wasn't a complete package being brought to them?
No. We just had some chit-chats before that about a bunch of other stuff, and that was it. So it was, you know, idea was his, you know. And I took it wholeheartedly because I saw I could very easily project myself in what he wrote. You know, in some cases it was like, literally I felt like I wrote it. You know? Yeah. Even though obviously I didn't. Yeah. So it was very easy to do. You know, we were very aligned on that thing. You know, and I loved it. Original plan though, like my regret is this. Original plan was 2 years worth of like 26 or 28 issues of like self-contained story. And at some point there was a change of plans. So they kind of moved into some other direction. I don't know who was into it. I would guess that it was probably Marvel that wanted to kind of change it up a little bit, and I didn't like that part because I really thought that this original plan would work better. Problem though is, you know, there is just you know, as you go along in a series that becomes popular, it gets harder and harder to push against you know, all the you know, forces that want you to do this.
A lot of chefs kind of start claiming ownership to the meal.
Let's put it that way. Yeah. So after a while it gets diluted, and you know, you just say, yeah, well, we did what we could do in the circumstances. Let's do something else. You know.
So when it comes to dealing with that mechanics of dealing with a company like Marvel and that big monolith of a company, dare I ask what your reaction was when you saw the trailer for Blood and Thunder and a certain shot appeared on the screen?
Well,
which looks remarkably like, well, it is.
Yeah. Well,
did they consult you for that?
No.
Of course not. Okay.
Here's the thing. The way I see that stuff, whatever I did on a page, it's if you want to see it, you go buy the book, read it, and that's it. If somebody else decides to use parts of that work, mix it with something else, and blah blah blah, I couldn't really care less, you know.
I think this comes back to that ownership thing again.
Yes, although you know, once it goes from Marvel Comics to Marvel Entertainment, turns out that there are options, you know, to get some more money for you from it. So that's what I'm thinking of, really. Whatever the movie is going to be in the end, it's going to be its own beast, you know.
So does that mean you've not been invited to the premiere, or you've not been invited to the screenings?
I was,
okay.
But the premiere is actually today.
Right, okay.
So I couldn't go because of this show.
Shame. Swine. Good choice. But yeah.
I got to remind you though, I got this invitation 10 days ago.
Okay.
So I was like, well, yeah, fuck you very much. Anyways, the thing is really, it doesn't really have anything to do with that. I know they use, I mean, they've been using my stuff before.
Is it a film you're up for seeing?
What?
Is it a film you're up for seeing? Is it something you've been...
Yeah, I'm gonna go see it and see how much of my stuff they stole and how much I can send to my lawyer, you know, to get some money. That's what I'm gonna do.
Fair enough.
But you know, the thing is, like, one missed opportunity, though, I think, is like when I saw the design for Goddard, the main villain, was like, I think it's the right thing for them to do humanoid character, not the alien that I did in the story, because him being alien or not is not really important for character. But you know, having him have like a crusader tunic, which is white on white, is kind of, you know.
Might look good on the black and white scenes. It might, you know, that contrast. It might.
Yeah, but the main point of the character was he's like very white, black. You know, he's black and white. You know, and in the end they decided to go for white on white. Okay, you know? I mean, he's a great actor, and he will probably be great in that. But that's like my minor grip. You know, some people were like really unhappy because well, he's not alien like he's. I'm like, movies shouldn't really, go for like. There's different stuff that work in a book, and there are different stuff that work in a movie. You know, so I don't think they made a mistake for not copying the style of the book. You know, but I think they made a mistake with that thing. On the other hand, we'll see. They make a shitload of money. Who the fuck am I?
Yeah. Well, we'll cover the relationship between Marvel and Marvel Comics. Well, we'll just one more question, then we'll move on. Certainly, when it comes to the choice for the next character arcs, and they're bringing the Eternals, or they've done the Eternals as part of Marvel Phase 4. At which point, it felt like when they then announced that they were going to be doing the book with yourself and Kieran, that it was something that would jump on the back of the hopefully renewed interest in the characters. At which point then, when do you start feeling that it's a book that you are invested in, rather than a commercial kind of driven project? Because I can imagine Kieran is not someone who would just go, okay, it's driven by market forces, but I've got stories. I've got stories.
And I'm kind of like that too. Like, I don't care if there's like a movie, you know, tied into it or whatever. You know, is there some substance to a story or not? Is there, like, let's put it this way. I don't want to do stuff where when I collect the last check, I want to forget about what I've done. I've done a bit of that shit, you know, in my career, and I don't want to do it anymore. So I will occasionally do something that I see as very commercial, you know, but if there's some substance to it too, okay, you know, if there's nothing but commerciality, I'm not going to do it, you know. I mean, I do have option to choose, and, you know, why not choose something that you don't think is a complete trash, you know. At the end of the day, you're paid the same for doing this or that, you know. So,
fair enough. We're talking Eternals, which has got so much weight at Marvel and in just the comics lesson generally. Jack Kirby on the book, that Neil Gaiman run as well. How much weight did you feel on your shoulders? No?
Here's the thing. Well, we were supposed to redesign and restart the thing with minimal connection to previous stuff. So, you know, you're just starting from scratch, pretty much, you know. Maybe Kieran had more work in that regard than me, because he had to kind of navigate not to repeat certain things that other people did, blah, blah, blah. So for me, it was, well, yeah, I'll just redesign stuff and, you know, go for it. So it was very easy for me. Usually the biggest problem you have when you actually have to continue something as organically as possible that's already established, you know, and it kind of goes against your instincts. That's where you're kind of.
Did you go back and look at some of the? How far did you go back? Or is it something where you just go, "Oh, I've got the job to do"?
I did look at some of the stuff, and I started reading some of it, but I quickly decided that's not really helping me, because you know, what we are going to do, because I already had like a synopsis, you know, What we are going to do with that is totally different. So no point. So I just stopped. I will literally use those PDF just for references because there's like this character needs to be blah blah blah. He's in that book, So I didn't really read it in the end. I just kind of scrolled through and okay, this is. I mean, it's based on Deniken, and as such, there's two options you can really do. One is go full camp, which is what Kirby did, and the other one is go very serious, which is what Gaiman did, So in the end, for us, it was like.
If there's anyone who can balance that full camp and serious, it's Kieran Gillen.
That's pretty much what we went for,
he straddles both camps particularly.
Because those two books kind of delineate where Eternals are, in my mind, at all. So you have to go in between those two. I would say that I would like if the book was more mythic, mythological, because there are some mythological, moments in it. I don't think there's enough of it. But on the other hand, they already had plans to do shit with the Eternals, which kind of went against that.
That's where my next question is.
So we could only do so much of a meeting.
Well, let's bookend your career, because it's still ongoing, obviously. But we are now heading towards the next big Marvel event, the Avengers vs. X-Men, with the Eternals very much being the driving force of that story. Whereabouts in that chain of creating or doing Eternals did you learn that was going to be on the path? Was that early doors, or how far into it when you learned that was going to happen?
I was probably finishing issue 5 or 6 when somebody mentioned that, and they were like, "Oh, would you like to do that?" And I immediately said no, because I've done. Here's the thing: I've done, event books before, and I don't want to go through this ordeal again. Let's put it that way. No matter
I like sequels.
Well, yes, but when you do this,
I like it. You had to live through it.
Yeah, exactly. Back then I had 12-hour working days. For months. No weekends, shit like that.
Yeah.
So fuck that shit. I've done it. I don't want to go through it again. I think I'm too old for that. There's some, new artists who are probably eager to do it. Please, I can do covers, which is what I did.
That's really,
And that's it.
Have you enjoyed doing the covers for that series? Because I mean, the situation. Well, certainly from the covers that I've seen, you look like you're a play. You look like you really kind of go.
I mean, those are characters I know. So it was. I've just done 12 issues of them. So I know how to treat them in the way that I like. Blah blah blah. And it was easy for me to do. So yeah. But it's just way too much shit when you're doing, because here's the problem with the event comics. Marketing has too much input into what gets done, so that's when you get changes, and suddenly there's something gets added on to and they never move your deadline. It's like, there's another 10 pages that would be like really cool. Fucking it, So I understand the commercial, incentives and stuff like that, but it's just I've done it, I don't want to do it again. I would rather do a monthly book and
Okay. So let's then go past that bookend and look to the future before I open up to questions. So do start thinking about your questions, please. What's next?
I don't know. Currently, I finished Eternals, my run, and currently I'm just doing a bunch of covers, and I'm writing a 30-page book that I'm going to paint too, while waiting for the next bigger book that I'm going to do, which I can't really talk to you about because they have to So
I'll tell you what, just for the creators in the room, just to ask that question, your creative process, it's all pencil and paint, I'm guessing. Is there any digital work? What is your process?
let's put it this way. When I do painting, it's all traditional.
Yep.
When I do black and white monthly book, I do pencils and then I enhance them in Photoshop with grayscales and textures. So it's like 80% old school and 20-25% computer, which is kind of confusing to people because I keep on getting people go, oh, you let your colorists do your backgrounds. I'm like, where did you see that? Well, there's no pencil here. I'm like, I did it in grayscale, you idiot. Colorist just has to do a fucking flat color on it. Just because it's not done in pencil doesn't mean colorist did it, Yeah. And I explained my process, with that, like when we were doing Thor, they put out all these things, like, okay, this is like pencil, stage, then this is like pencil plus grayscale stage, then this is like pencil, grayscale, and
granular.
Yeah, stuff. And like we didn't do a shit because everybody still, why do you let colorists do your backgrounds? Colorists can't do backgrounds, So if you see something in the background that's actually drawn, it's probably not the colorist, it's me.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay, we'll open up to the audience. Any questions for Esad at all? Anything that you would like to ask? Anything that I may not have covered? Go for it, sir.
Who was it you that came up with the Thor design for the film? The new kind of black?
What's the Thor costume?
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah. Right. Did you have any direction about it, or was it just fully?
No. What I wanted to do, like I already did years ago, the walking book, where I kind of treated them closer to what actual Viking might imagine as them being. So closer to that, more like a warrior, less like a flamboyant costume. So I applied the same logic to Thor God of Thunder to that. So I did a little bit of medievalist, stuff that's kind of derived Thor, but I went for as much of a Viking look as possible with him still looking like a Marvel Thor. You can't go full Viking,
Well, that's actually a question I was going to ask when we were talking about it, because I was asking about the, certainly from Jason's input, he's obviously called on you to do, but how much research into that Viking design, into the Nordic design work? I mean, how much reference do you go into? How much research?
No research and reference. Look, I'm interested in history in general, so I already knew a little bit enough of that stuff just from my hobby.
Fair enough.
They sent me some like, okay, this is how a long house looks like. I'm like, I know it already. I got better photos than you, So really, no research at all at that point because it's just it doesn't need to be so grounded that you actually have to do a lot of research. So I had to kind of restrain myself because I had this tendency of going into like, let's say, historically informed stuff.
Going all the way in.
Yeah. So, I had to forget what I know about that stuff, and think about it more as just like a mythic, not defined enough so you can kind of, project yourself more into it,
Sure.
Or whatever. And you have to keep on reminding yourself, well, you're doing Marvel version of Thor, you're not doing the Nordic version of Thor, So you don't want to be too historically accurate.
Sure.
That's
Fair enough. Excellent stuff. Good question. Thank you very much indeed.
Was it like, did someone say, we want a new look, a new design?
That's what they basically said.
Right.
Well, not really. They were like, well, you're going to do stuff, and I'm like, okay, what's his costume? Oh, we're not sure. Do you want to just, come up with something? Yeah, so I came up with that, and that was it. They didn't ask any changes. I did a version that had like black leather sleeves with some metal on top that never got used in the end. That was originally supposed to be used for like a later half of the thing that never got done. It was changed, so there's only like the design with that stuff. But that's pretty much it. I mean, all that's required really, if you redesign a character, so everybody can still recognize him as Thor. So as long as you don't go too far away, so people start wondering who's that, you're okay.
I think we've got time for maybe one or two questions. Anything from the back? Anything that anyone wants to cover that perhaps I haven't touched on?
Looks like you did a really good job then. That's all.
Seems like it, doesn't it? Okay.
I got a few.
I'm sure. Yes. Okay. Let's explain. This chap has come from.
Well, just recently from Belgium.
From Belgium. Okay. No pressure.
What's wrong with you?
But
well, I came from Croatia to see you.
that was something we did. Where are you based in Croatia? You still still a home away?
Yes.
So,
Yes. Never moved. Right at the time when I started working abroad, it was becoming possible not to move. Because FedEx at first, and then fast internet, we just send it. That's it. But even in the FedEx days, I remember like a friend of mine lives in Brooklyn. He would send them a FedEx package. I would send them a FedEx package from Croatia. 24 hours for both packages. So why the fuck do I move? It'd just be more expensive rent there. So yeah, I like to visit whenever I can, but I don't know.
And seeing as we've got Ollie here from the Comic Con, and I'm certain he's going to write up something about this panel a bit later, we'll finish on a bit of edge. A writer that you've worked with that you'll never work with again.
I like Nigel.
So
should we have done this a couple of drinks down? I don't
I don't remember what was the name of the guy who did.
What was the book?
I did a couple of filling issues of stuff with the writers on those books that I really didn't find very good, so I would avoid those. But then on the other hand, who knows, maybe in something else they're better. So it's with me, it's down to really like the story. Name might be important or not really. Okay, there's a story. I think it's great. I think I see myself doing it. I think I might be the one to enhance it, as opposed to, it's great, but it's not for me, it's for somebody else, and how to do it. I mean, I do tend to work with the people I like to work with, but it's really down to kind of sensibilities. I've done a lot with Hickman, and it's very easy for me to work with him because I just understand right away what he wants.
I can guarantee you got that. You know each other's rhythms as well. You know exactly where.
Yeah. So some people told me that they kind of had problem working with him because they didn't understand the script. I never had that problem. No. Some people would say, like, oh, he does some very cool stuff. I'm like, what does that mean? It's up to you to add, to make characters emote.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to write it. You have to understand what the story is about, and he doesn't have to write in, oh, no, he's because from everything that happened, you realize, oh, okay, yeah, so this is the situation. He's that, so. But it's down to whatever people are used to. Because some people they want the whole script, somebody wants just a very few, and all so it's very subjective.
Sure. I'll tell you what, it's safe to say that every project that you come onto, writers that you've worked with that you don't want to work with again, or ones that you want to work with over and over, I think it's safe to say that the work you bring to the books distinguish you and distinguish those books, and we look forward to seeing many more.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could please. Oh.
We've got the drink on the floor tonight as well, so if you want to come along to that, find some
Yes, the drink and fall will be happening later. Yes, I'll be doing
Who's the DJ?
I will probably be DJing.
Oh, David Gatter's not coming then.
No, he's not. We couldn't afford him.
See, if you invited Kieran, he would be your DJ.
Yeah.
Still think I think he's asked. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, can you please? Esad Ribic.